Why does this keep happening, Dave? I don't understand. Frank, please lay down. You're so stressed all the time. Whatever, this is just part of my life now.
It's Travis's birthday, the weekend.
His birthday's on Monday.
Monday.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing podcasts. No, wait, what? Beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, smashing podcasts, and I'm joined with
Bridget.
Today, we're here to actually talk to you about Silo's first episode. It's season premiere of its second season. Now, if you missed it, Bridget and I recapped the first season for you to download and enjoy and do all the things with your face. It would be really great if you took a listen to it. Before you dug into this episode, it will catch you up on what the series is about, some unanswered questions that we rattled off near the end of the episode. We had a litany of them. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, because what I did last night, Bridget, like I'm accusing you of something.
Yeah,
while you were live streaming doing something else, your personal life, how dare you, with your found on NBC live streams, which are doing pretty well, actually. So what am I complaining about?
They're doing better than I ever expected them to.
Doing better than our stuff, by the way. Just want to say that out loud.
That's weird.
That was jealousy on my part. I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
Anyway, getting to the point, I actually posted our last episode from season 3, episode 8, titled Threshold, as a video podcast. So now you can also watch us on YouTube and Spotify video.
Do people watch things on Spotify?
Yes, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm shocked by that
myself.
answer. And so are you.
Well, that's the whole point, is that what tends to happen on Spotify is they've been making a big push to compete with YouTube in light of recent news that people prefer listening to podcasts on YouTube over Spotify, because around half a year ago, YouTube announced that they would ingest podcasts, RSS feeds, or you can create podcast RSS feeds for distribution on YouTube Music. And so what that ended up doing was it created intense competition between YouTube and Spotify for dominance on the podcast space. YouTube has its own podcast recommendations page and all that. So it's serious competition, and it always has been for the podcast dominance. People have been doing video podcasts for the very longest time without this. But the fact that you can distribute a podcast on YouTube Music, have that dominance, similar to Spotify, which was originally all about music.
Yeah, correct.
It's a competitor. It's major.
Okay, I'm just surprised by it, I guess, that people would watch videos on Spotify. But here's the thing. I don't get it. What's the big deal about Spotify? People are ride or die over Spotify, and I do not understand it. I'm an Apple Music girly.
Well, I get it. I think it was the alternative to Apple Music because it came before Apple Music, technically speaking. I mean, iTunes was a thing, yes.
Yes, correct.
And you could
Apple
buy music off
different.
of iTunes.
Yeah.
Apple Music was like its evolution into the streaming space.
Correct.
Which took a book from its competitor, Spotify. Why buy music when you could just stream it for pennies, let's say, or a monthly subscription? Anyway, that's okay, because at the end of the day, competition in all things usually is a good thing. It makes things better for humanity on the whole. And we have these things. And
with the exception of everybody and their mother coming up with a subscription service now.
Well, yes, but then you can innovate on that even and go even further, add value adds, add features that the other one doesn't have.
That's fair. But Dave, it's gotten so out of hand that curricula is now offered as a streaming service and you can no longer buy it outright, which is bananas to me because it is so expensive. You can subscribe to it for $3,000 to $5,000 a year.
Ugh, that's too expensive.
When that would be the outright price to buy it.
Yeah, that's insane. Who's in charge of that? The U.S. government?
No, there's no regulation over that.
See, anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
The bottom line is Spotify, by the way, does recommend video podcasts over audio podcasts. That's the point. So that's why you can see us right now on Spotify if you're watching there.
I weirdly did not take any notes.
I don't blame you.
To be fair, it didn't feel like I could, because what was there to take notes on? But anyway, it's fine.
I would say the same thing, except here we are.
Except
Scroll,
you took
scroll,
like
scroll.
6 pages of notes.
It's what they didn't say mostly in this episode speaks volumes. It's true what they say. A picture
It's worth 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm. And this episode titled The Engineer, which is something that we will dig in on. It's pretty simple, and yet it isn't so simple. But let's start with the basics. What this episode did, in my view, and you can push me on this one, is it went back to Juliet's roots. Because lest you forget, this is a common thing that is often taken for granted as we suspend disbelief in most shows, is that, oh, our protagonists can do anything. They can figure out anything. But this episode makes a concerted effort to go, okay, no, let's roll back. Because as she's about to do these feats of engineering, you have to know where that comes from and why she gravitates towards that. What's her motivation to be an engineer?
Plus, it's a really great vehicle for storytelling, because otherwise it's literally just silence for an entire episode, other than screaming or grunting or anything else that might happen while you're alone.
And
but
the flashbacks.
Not a ton of people talk out loud to themselves. You know what I mean?
Only crazy people.
Well, I do it, so that's cool, but thanks.
Dave remained silent throughout the entire thing.
Thanks. So it was a good vehicle. I thought of that halfway through the episode. I was like, man, they were doing a lot of flashbacks. Yes, they all had pieces that fit.
Made sense for the moment.
With what was going. But I was like, I bet part of this is because otherwise this is just a silent episode.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
You're literally doing things that would normally be cut, essentially.
Yeah.
There needs to be the struggle here. We needed to use this vehicle as sort of a way of moving backwards and moving forwards. Not only, by the way, for Juliet, for this place, you get the sense of what happened here. And not only what happened here, but what could happen to the silo she just left. Makes you wonder the significance of how maybe even the silo she just left is still able to stand after so long.
Well, and she was such a big part of why the silo was able to maintain, period.
Yeah, mechanical.
Because we saw the huge effort to fix the nick in the blade to help the generator run. If Juliet hadn't been around, I don't know that that would have gone the way that it did, because she literally is the only reason that it worked. She almost died trying to ensure that that would work.
You know, if you think about it, Juliet is both the cure and the sickness of the silo she just left. But that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like all diseases. You kind of need a little bit of the sickness to solve ultimately what you're going through, what your problem is, what your ailment is. Because when people understand that they literally had to shut down, again, the theme of this silo that she's in right now went dark. Similarly,
yes,
it was in danger of flooding. Similarly, which is really interesting to me, because all of a sudden my wheels started turning, much like of a clock or an engine, whatever. That was really nerdy and I apologize. Was this planned obsolescence? Was this whole thing staged? Did each silo contain not only the means for civilization's survival, but also the series of events that would have likely have been caused in every silo in order for it to eventually have a chance at saving itself and maybe even entering the top side? That Juliet needed to go through what she went through in order to save her silo. Same as the other one, because the same things ended up happening. Now, you can make the argument that that would have happened anyway. Eventually, generators break down, and these are common challenges. Yeah. But it did get me thinking that similar things could have happened here. Same words are being bandied about on the graffiti walls, truth and all that stuff. So it does make you wonder that whether this was all planned in this manner by the founders, quote unquote. Really pushes you, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Well, let me pose this question. Okay, similarly to season one of the themes that kept punching me in one of my brain folds was, you're obviously an audience, just like Juliet, who wants to get at the truth.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
However, the question starts creeping up in the back of your mind like this. It keeps punching your medulla oblongata. It says to you, well, is that the right thing? Because sometimes too much truth, too soon or too quickly, could cause this whole place to collapse. That to me felt like the underlying theme of season one, or like an underlying theme at the bedrock of season one.
Yeah.
In season two, it seems to me what they're staging right now is, well, this is what could happen, but also this theme of connection. Because as you're going to the past, one of the things that Juliet admits to Martha Walker, is that it's nice to have a friend again. And she not only fixes the puppy for herself to fix a broken thing, a thing that meant something to somebody at some point, but that she uses that as a means to make friends with Shirley. She wants the connection. Martha's telling her, hey, it's nice to have a friend again. Well, you could have more.
I always assumed that Shirley was younger. That's not my judgment on but I thought that she was considerably younger.
Oh, no, I get that.
So I
get
was
that.
surprised when they're like the same age-ish.
Or even like Rebecca Ferguson does kind of look a little older than Shirley.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I was surprised by it.
Although those Nordic genes don't hold up.
I guess not.
I don't know. I'm kidding.
Not. I guess
she's a stunner. Let's just stop here.
I was like so mad because she goes in this new silo and she is looking for clothes and she grabs like a jumpsuit. And I was like, oh, what a hideous article of clothing. And then she like puts it on and I'm like, why? Why do you look good in that? No one would look good in that. I would look like the Michelin Man. Why? Why do you look good? It doesn't make any sense. It's not fair.
What, did that really run through your mind?
Yes. You know, she's going to put it on. I was like, oh, yikes. And then it cuts to the next scene and she like looks great. And I'm like, this isn't fair.
I had the same thought,
You
by the way.
shouldn't look that good in a jumpsuit.
With the EV suit, I was just like, I would not look like that.
No, I would look like a marshmallow.
I would look like I had a spare tube inside there, like this weird oblong shape,
like an
right in the
inner
middle.
tube on.
Yeah, exactly. It's for my protection. All right, a little cushion for the mission.
Okay, I really enjoyed this little vignette that we got at the beginning about this silo.
Hold up. Yes. Oh, you're talking about the flashback to what happened to this
silo?
Yes.
Okay. I loved it.
Gotcha.
It was so well done because it was so short and yet you fully were engaged. Yeah. It was really, really cool. It was very, very, very well done. And all I could think about during this episode is that I have downloaded the first book of this series on Audible because I listen. I listen to audiobooks on my way to and from work because I have a 30-minute to 35, depending more even sometimes on bad days. And so I listen to audiobooks on my way to and from work. And I have it downloaded on my phone. And I just kept thinking about how wonder if the book is like this or if the entire first book is the entire first season. Because it's entitled Wool and the wool is used to clean the camera. So that's where the name comes from. But I'm not 100% sure. And I feel like the second book is called Dust.
Correct.
So I feel like it has to do with...
What's the trilogy? Wool, Dust, and...
Yeah, I don't remember what the third one is.
What was it? In tape. It's Heat Tape is the third one.
I just feel like then that would be about being out in this dust bowl of a world. I may listen to it and then come back, I guess, with feedback on how the book series is.
Are you worried that reading the books might...
I don't want it to spoil it for me.
Yeah.
I know. It's why I put it off. But now that we're this far in, I'm like, could I listen to it? I don't know.
Well, I guess you'll tell the audience.
Yeah,
because it's fair. Whether or not you reveal comparisons to the book is a whole other story, but you can tell people that you read ahead and is that this? And well,
I know. I don't want to get ahead of the show because my fear, as with every book adaptation, is that
it ruins your watch.
The book will be better. And then,
you know what? I think there is a party that wants, as we're investing time and getting notes on a show, just to have the book kind of ruin your watch.
Well, I mean, to some degree, yeah.
For me, that's the most important thing.
Take a look at something that's considered like a very successful book adaptation. The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Considered overall a huge success. Lovers of the book typically love the movie. It was incredibly well done.
One of the first
movies. Really. Yeah. I still have huge beef with that though, because there's a huge chunk of the last book that is just completely left off. And arguably it is my favorite part of the entire series is The Scourge of the Shire. And it comes in at the end of Return of the King and it was left out of the movies. Now, there is some of it in the extended cut, but it just doesn't do it the justice that I felt like it deserved because it gives you that fulfillment of like an epilogue, because that's really what it is an epilogue. But you get like that last little bit of adventure and story.
There's always something out there too.
Yeah, it was my favorite. Anyway, so even a successful book adaptation can still be missing pieces. And so that's always my concern.
Well, then again, I think I've done this for so long to understand that sometimes less is more when you're doing adaptations, first of all, but also with anything. And I think you can probably agree that maybe in say even Stephen King to a certain extent. Did you have to describe everything? I mean, I get it. Because you do want to give the dish, let's call it, you want to give it the proper rounding of ingredients to balance it, right? You want to proof the dough, let's say. It's all about balance. You want to introduce enough, because it's not just enough to have the dough, throw it in the oven, and you make bread. You have to proof your dough. You have to knead the dough. You have to fold it. You have to prepare the gluten, making folds and rolling it out and making folds again and rolling it out. I can appreciate that. Shortbread, you have to have clumps of butter in it, not melted butter, but it's what makes it shortbread.
To be fair, Stephen King's probably the worst example for that because his film adaptations, the only ones that are good are short stories.
Oddly enough, because it leaves room for interpretation.
We've been watching Mr. Mercedes, and that is perfection.
Oddly good? Really?
So good. It's already got 3 seasons. It aired
it's a
2017 to 2019.
And we mentioned Kingdom Hospital, which is something
Kingdom Hospital is also a really great one.
I have to go back to.
I love that one. But again, I have some sort of weird connection to it. Oh, it was a Peacock exclusive.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, Corona is what killed it because in May of 2020, the show was discontinued.
Hopefully it had a good ending.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was not a Peacock original. It's just Peacock picked it up. Premiered on Audience.
Oh.
Which was a American pay television channel owned by AT&T.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, it operated as a commercial-free service.
Which is funny.
It was supposed to be like HBO.
Tried to do that.
I guess.
Yeah, Tubi is something like that. But they tried to roll this service out right around the time the pandemic hit. They offered vertical and horizontal video.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
It was that big venture that people were advertising like crazy. And it
was like, and it was, honestly, it was kind of like Vine because a lot of it was like really short.
Yeah, the episodes were shorter, supposedly. It was geared towards lower attention spans.
Yes, correct. Which TikTok ended up taking that place.
But it was very innovative. Yeah.
It stars Brendan Gleeson. He's an Irish actor. He was in Braveheart. 28 Days Later. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he's best known for being in the Harry Potter films as Mad-Eye.
Mad-Eye? Oh, Mad-Eye Moody. Yes. Well, I should mention on the side, though, 25 years later is coming out next year. 28, sorry.
Yes.
In 2025 is, that's where I got mixed up.
Correct. Correct, because I am extremely excited. I've been waiting.
It's Bridget's origin story. Technically.
It's not really, but I had, weirdly as a young child, had nightmares about zombies recurring.
What I was referring to.
No, that's when I was little, Dave. I'm talking like as a small child. I don't even know how I knew what zombies were.
Where you're going over a story that you'd told us and then you'd seen 28 hours later?
It's 28 days.
20 days later? Yeah, sorry. I was like 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 years.
I saw 28 days later when I was 13.
And you're like, I was always scared of zombies, but this was like, ooh, this is great. This is what you were saying.
Oh, I was terrified. I was horrified of it. But I loved that. I don't know why.
Loved it.
Yeah, still loved it.
Especially
Horrified
the rage zombies.
They're not zombies, they're infected.
They're infected, they're rage monsters, they're rage.
That's what everybody always says.
David.
Kick rocks.
Come on, there's no cure. That's the whole technicality. Anyway.
Kick rocks.
Here's the thing. When it came to adaptations, people didn't know what they were doing largely. Correct. Look at the Mario Brothers movie originally with
John Leguizamo. Dennis Hopper's in it.
As Bowser Koopa.
Bob Hoskins.
Look at that. People did not know what they were doing when it came to adaptations.
No, they did not.
That's the thing. It's like you could adapt Stephen King, but you'd have to throw out a lot that would be done in film or could be left out altogether to make a better movie. Going to Lord of the Rings, perfect example of throwing out so much. You can throw out all the stuff about language, about the behavior of hobbits. You can do that in a filmic way, which is what they did. Oh, they eat a lot, so they complain about not having any. Or whatever. They eat too much of the bread that is supposed to fill you up for the whole day. That whole thing.
Lambas. It's like
Lambas.
Lembas.
Right,
I baked it when I was in high school because I was a nerd for this.
You're a geek.
Yeah. I was a nerd for this.
I feel you. Okay, so moving further backwards, why that vignette works is because, first of all, the characters had character. They chose actors that were very expressive, but also, isn't it a mirror for the characters that we already seem to know, at least from the first season? IT is IT. They kept secrets.
To some degree.
The sheriff is determined to know the truth.
Yeah.
They're inquisitive.
Yes. You're left with more questions because what happened exactly? How did we get to this point? Why is the engineering underwater?
And the sheriff's office has a relationship with engineering directly.
It was interesting to see. Now, you don't need to know all of that. I mean, maybe we'll find some of it out because obviously there's more to this story. And this is where Juliet is for the time being, indefinitely, as far as we know.
She's figuring it out as we're figuring it out what
'cause
happened here.
She's safe here, at least for the time being, right now.
Now, what's great about this episode is it answers one of our questions that we had at the end of the season, the first season, which is what was Bernard rushing to do in the server room? Can you take a guess?
No.
He was checking on whoever it was behind that blast door, the Steve Zahn character, whom we don't know his name yet. There must be a similar character behind that door in their silo.
You think so?
I know so.
Interesting. Is that Steve Zahn?
That's Steve Zahn.
Yes!
You know how I figured that out? So let's take a moment to first of all appreciate this insight that that's what Bernard was doing. There is somebody behind that door. We don't know who it is, and the other silo, but we know that Steve Zahn is in this silo. Big reveal, because the sheriff is asking, what were they even protecting? Why didn't they open the door, that door? When he says the door, he's not talking about the outside door. He's talking about that door.
Yeah, he's talking about the interior door. Yeah, I know.
Right. That's an answer. We don't know what that's going to look like in the other silo, but we will actually be moving into that silo, the one that we knew, in the next episode. Interesting. Okay, fine. But you predicted correctly that we would continue to follow Juliet into the first episode at least.
You had to, I feel like. I was worried they wouldn't, and I would be like, what happened?
See, and I was worried that they would be focusing on Juliet for the majority of the second season.
As it turns out, either way, I'm left wanting, which obviously is the whole point.
Great.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, let's move back to Steve Zahn, because one of the things I really love about Steve Zahn being a part of this...
That you just love him in general, because I do.
I do, but I love him even more because of the projects he's attached himself to in the last few years. Effing White Lotus. It's a masterpiece. And they're coming out with a new season.
I've never seen it.
Steve Zahn, first season. Bonnie something or other. She's also amazing. She was in American Horror Story. She was in that Nashville show, I think it was.
Connie Britton?
Connie Britton. Yes, not Bonnie. It's Connie.
Connie Britton. It's Connie Britton. I was
Bonnie.
like, what?
In White Lotus, there's also... he was in The Last of Us. I keep forgetting his name. He's one of the best characters on the show.
See, I love and know Steve Zahn from Saving Silverman.
Listen, I own Saving Silverman.
Which is a classic early 2000s movie.
But this is what I was trying to tell you, is that Steve Zahn has been typically attached to the dumb character in most movies.
Correct. Yeah.
And to see him as a serious, and still has that little bit of goof in him kind of character, is just heartening for me to see. I love that for him, and he loves that for him too. And that's how I knew about it, is I saw like a small one of those 7-second or 20-second videos with he and Rebecca Ferguson talking about the second season.
Oh, cool.
It spoiled it for me in a way, but I didn't mind because...
Well, I didn't know. So I was really excited. And when I saw the eyes, I was like, I know that face. Like, how do I know that
voice?
Face?
It's
so
the
when
voice.
you said Steve Zahn, like just now, like I know who that is, but I can't tell who it is. So I'm really excited now because I love him.
How would you, based on that slit big and the long hair? I'm like, Steve Zahn does not have long hair. What is happening here? Also weird. But yes, Murray Bartlett is who I was referring to. He was in the third episode of The Last of Us's first season. He was playing alongside Nick Offerman, that character, the one with the beard and all that. The love interest. And he is phenomenal, by the way. Steve Zahn is incredible. The whole show is incredible so far. 2 seasons. Third season is coming out at some point, probably next year. Now that you've all watched the first episode, I highly encourage you to seek out those interviews with Steve and Rebecca Ferguson, who, by the way, went on a talk show tour, basically talking about this series and her ventures and her projects. She's incredible.
Well, and she's got the clout because she's done some really big projects already. And her having done Dune, that was such a big piece of her career. So her sticking in the sci-fi vein, it feels right. Yeah.
Before we got on here, I told Evelyn about the series, just what it's about. And then oddly enough, it's helmed by this very strong, intelligent woman. And then I said, think of it as a Tom Cruise situation. Tom Cruise is the EP, he directs it, and he's the star of the thing. Do you know what you would say about that? You'd be like, ugh, the man is
Tom
not
Cruise.
only... I'm just like using a
Yeah.
an example in your mind that you could think of that is like, ugh, and he's the star of the, ugh, a man, ugh. But when it's a woman, you're like, she's amazing. And she's the lead actress. So great.
No,
But
it's
it's-
impressive. I think we all just
No,
have
of course it's impressive.
It's impressive no matter who it is. I think we just all have a natural disdain for Tom Cruise. But anyway.
Also, yes. On top of him being, ugh, typical man. I gotta be in charge of everything.
It's not even that.
We hate it.
It's not even that, because when I find out that people who are acting in a show end up directing, to me, that's always a hugely impressive feat that you can
Agreed.
do two jobs at the same time. So it doesn't really matter who it is.
And most people, I think, take it for granted that, oh, they just want to be in charge of things. No, it's hard. It's really, really hard. I don't say this to be like a critique on the way we see men and women. Really, I often put myself in the position of, okay, but how would I feel if this was that or this was that? Would I feel the same way? And why wouldn't I feel the same way? Why can't I appreciate the fact that they pulled it off, first of all? Because that's hard. When you're behind and in front of the camera, that's really difficult, because you, as the actor now, you have to put your acting pants on, have to stop your director brain from moving. You have to take direction from whoever's behind the camera.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
You have to trust the process. You can't, in the middle of acting, go cut. Do you know what I mean? You have to let the scene breathe, or let somebody else be the eyes on the scene. You shouldn't see yourself. Otherwise, you'd make yourself crazy. You have to be in that role. You cannot get out of it. So all of this to say that if you can pull it off, it's always amazing. And if you don't make the people on set's lives absolutely horrible in the process. Rebecca Ferguson's got ghosts. People on set are like, that bitch a monster. Which I'm sure is true, but it's in the best way possible. Based on the output, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that may be a touch point that we can touch on right now. First of all, based on this episode alone, what we've seen in the first season, is this giving you what you want?
This was a really great episode. It did two things. It gave me enough throughout the episode to be engaged. And then it gave me another what moment at the end to be like, I have got to see what happens next, which was what was so good about the first season, is that every episode would end and you're like, what?
There's a reveal.
You like had to know what happened. And granted, I watched it after it had all come out. So I was able to watch numerous episodes one after the other. So now that I have to wait each week, I love waiting each week. I know people don't like that. I love waiting each week. So I'm excited because it gives me time to like really think on what I just watched and what happened, and for it to kind of live in my head for a little while.
Theorize and give you time to look back on previous episodes because of that reveal. Like, oh, so wait, what does that mean? Oh, why was the vent rattling in the first episode of the first season? Mm-hmm. That's why. The things was it called dental floss? Hanging from the back of the, anyway. But you just touched on something I didn't think of, which is the binge watcher. Mm-hmm. Because the binge watcher is going to go straight from the end of season 1 into this episode and get the reveal of what Bernard was moving towards in that last episode. So there's a bit of continuity. It gave you a sense of, okay, here's a reset to not only narratively catch you up to what we just saw in the first season by way of another silo, but we're going to take you right back to the end of the second season, and we're not going to miss a beat.
I am curious though, why do you think there's a person in each silo?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Okay, I just want to know, because that did not cross my mind at all.
It really pushed me to really think of why that is. And I had this thought, because the founder's symbol, at least the one that we see in this episode, is 6 faces, and they each stand for probably a department, like mechanical, the sheriff's department, judicial, recycling, janitorial, which is surveillance, IT, let's say. Say that there's crops is somewhere in there. I don't know what that is. Runners, who are they? Who cares? Doesn't matter. But where do they fall under? But then I thought something else. Okay, you have all these cameras everywhere, and there's a concerted effort to not reveal how we got here, what the truth is. Because if the truth were revealed, the inclination to want to go outside, absent all the information, but then to know that you can never leave, probably would make you feel like, what's the point? Okay. So that you have to maintain this really weird balance of keeping people in the dark, but also had the truth be revealed, they would feel nihilistic or hurt people even. Mm-hmm. It's not just shutting down, it's about raging, which clearly happened here. And then you have to play the game of, are they telling the truth? Because you've done the thing. You've tried to keep the balance of not people wanting to despair and Maybe they know why they need to keep this a secret too. We don't know that yet. But what we do know is that there's a concerted effort to keep things a secret. Okay, let's keep that in mind as I say the next thing, which is we always think that the surveillance state, the cameras behind mirrors and all that stuff, we always attribute that to this is some 1984 Orwellian stuff.
Yeah.
That this is the police state, the surveillance state. But I thought to myself, wouldn't it be interesting to have somebody who actually knows everything and they have the means via these cameras? There's a feed that goes to their room to see what's been happening. They know everything. They're fully aware of how we got here. Or maybe even there's more than one person. We only know the one person. But maybe there's a whole set of people behind this area that knows what's going on, that is aware, and they're basically the knowledge keepers. They know what's going on. They have a wherewithal to understand the situation and maybe even direct it. And they're not malicious, obviously, because they want humanity to survive. Because why else would you need the cameras other than to spy on people? Sure, but wouldn't it be helpful for that person to know how this experiment's going and how to nudge it in different directions?
Sure.
In like a first mover kind of situation, even if they don't know why they're doing it, they trust them enough to follow the orders.
Okay.
So I think that's the role. They're like the omniscient viewer. It's like Moses. They can never make it to the promised land,
I'm
but
not
they will
sold
direct
on
them
that.
to it.
I'm not sold
I'm not
on
either, but my first instinct is to take all the ingredients and say, well, what was all of that for? This is pretty elaborate. What is this whole elaborate system of interdependent checks? What is all that for beyond just this balancing
so
act?
I assumed that the door that's got the little flashy buoy key, because that's what it looks like to me.
The server room. Yeah.
I assumed that interconnected to the other silos.
Well, you assumed wrong. That's okay, Bridget. You can be wrong.
Well, we don't know.
No, we know. This episode revealed it. What were they protecting? We don't know what they were protecting. Let's be honest.
But I'm saying, like, what if that was tunnels to the other silos?
But that's at the bottom, Bridget. That's at the bottom.
We don't know, Dave. We don't know.
That's my assumption.
Okay.
It's my assumption.
That's fine.
Listen, again, we don't know anything. But
No.
we do know there was a concerted effort for IT to protect this door that happened to be behind the server rooms.
Correct. Yeah.
And there happens to be a person behind it, beyond which we do not know anything. But we do know
he seems a little crazy. That's really all I've got so far.
Well, we do know one more thing. We do know that if you try to open that door, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And he has the means to, which is why I based my thoughts on him having some sort of omniscient viewer, knows what is happening in order to influence things.
Okay. I have a question for you, because my belief is that he can leave that room because he cut the rope, right?
So that's what I was wondering, actually.
Okay. Because it didn't just snap because of how straight the edge of it was. And I know that that's what Juliet was looking at.
She literally goes, what the hell?
Yes. She must know that somebody's here because she thinks that someone's in the silo.
Reasonable.
But then
she hears the
like,
noise.
Yeah, but then she sees like the fan moving, and so she's like, okay, that must be what it was. But also that still doesn't answer your question about what happened to the rope, because ropes don't break that way.
I could see it. After so long, the rope loses its integrity, I guess.
But not completely straight. That's not how that works. He can leave that room. Or there's somebody else there.
There are still people here somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what she was saying.
So here's the thing. Someone had to stay behind, because otherwise, how did the door close behind the people who left?
Which door, though?
Okay, so there's the fully exterior door at the top of the ramp. Then there's an interior door at the bottom of the ramp. And then there's a secondary interior door into the silo.
Yeah, the outside airlock and the inside airlock.
How did that close behind all of those people pushing out of it? Someone had to have closed it.
Gotcha. You're right.
It wouldn't have closed on its own.
Right. And a person inside this place getting close to it would be extremely exposed.
Yes.
I mean, unless they got the stuff to do it, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Now, that could have been done remotely, for all we know. Here's the basis for that. The corpse is outside the door.
Mm-hmm.
How I know that is because it's a flash. And here's the thing about Apple TV, at least when I'm looking at it on my computer. When I'm looking on my computer, when I pause, there's that overlay, that dim overlay, when you hit pause.
Yeah.
And it's annoying. So what I have to do really quickly is take a screen grab and throw it in an image program and watch it. And on the inside of the door, as she's pushing it through,
Mhm.
It says, any survivors, please help survivors here. Who is that for if it's on the inner door in the same room as the blast door that Steve Zahn is behind? It's written so that Steve Zahn can see it. So they're assuming, just like you, maybe that's the door to the next silo. If there's other people behind that door, please open. We're here. They're stuck.
Yeah.
Because somebody opened the outside door and they thought they were safe here. Now, it could mean a lot of things. Maybe he saw them and he said, let me zap them with my zapper thing. There's gas that comes into the room and kills them. I don't know, whatever. But maybe you're onto something. Maybe it wasn't done remotely. Maybe he had to have been the one to do it, or
there's somebody else there. I mean, there's 100 floors.
10,000 possible people.
To a silo.
Not all of them are on the field.
Yeah.
Outside. Although it looks like a hefty amount, I gotta say.
Well, and the other thing that led me to believe that someone is there, they have to be, is because the bridge that all these people carried for this revolution was pulled back and then pushed up against the wall.
Good point.
So someone did that again to stop anybody else from being able to come in and get across.
Or it could have been the people that were on the other side. They didn't want the others to come in.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway,
like,
someone was still alive to do things within the silo at some point. Now, to be fair, those bodies are very decayed. The bodies on the exterior are near gone. It's mainly clothing that's left, but we don't know what's in the air, so we don't know how rapidly that could disintegrate a body or
decompose
a body. However, the bodies inside of the vault that was hermetically sealed are also very decayed.
Right. But then oxygen does have a role to play in that.
But still, also, you're going to get typhoid.
Maybe. All this is true. Then again, Steve Zahn, we're going to call him Steve Zahn for now, he could have told the people who were behind the door to pull the bridge in. So it didn't have to be him. And there may be still another person.
I don't know.
On that side, yeah. Might be him.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
Every now and again, Steve Zahn throws him a bone. You know, like, oh, here's some rations that I have behind this door. There's a chute.
I'm going to tie this back to Lord of the Rings, okay? This is what I want to tell the show. Go on, then. Keep your secrets.
This is Bridget's message to Dave when we're over theorizing. Fine. There is a tiny little factoid that I thought was like, this can't be a thing. This can't be a thing. First of all, how does she know to do that? I'll get to it. One of the big concerns outside of her losing air inside her suit. Well, she realized, first of all, that the heat tape was fraying, which means, okay, she may be exposed. There's a danger there too. She's running out of air. All these things are happening at the same time. She knows to grab the coffee in the cafeteria. She knows to douse herself and her suit, whatever, her suit mainly, with coffee.
Correct.
Coffee actually has a radioprotective effect.
Really? I did not
does.
know this. I thought it was just because she was looking for a liquid. I didn't even assume it was coffee. I assumed it was water that had rusted in these containers.
In these stainless steel containers.
Mm-hmm.
Not possible.
That's not possible.
I mean, it's possible. If they're sealed, it's not possible. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's two things here. How does she know coffee has a radioprotective effect?
Yeah, it's interesting.
She's an engineer. There's a little play there. That's fine. I can throw that away. I could suspend that disbelief a little bit. But the fact that she was able to do that, it's just interesting. It's something I found out today that I didn't know yesterday. They give it to folks who just had CT scans to clear the contrast fluid. And for folks who get radiotherapy, they often recommend drinking coffee to kind of flush out the radioactive effects. It is interesting, right?
It just must be because it's a diuretic.
Could be. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Something about the way coffee interacts with radiation. It's interesting. It's something to think about.
Well, great. That does me no good, Dave. I can't drink coffee, so.
Well, you don't have to drink it. You can just douse it on your body.
Yeah, I can douse myself with it.
That's a very interesting birthday present for Travis. My wife's crazy. She talks to herself and she douses herself in coffee. Call back. Anyway, there was another interesting thing that happened here that was just kind of like, whoa. Okay, we need to talk about this. As the sheriff from this silo in the past is descending upon IT, because that's just want to remind everybody that's where Juliet was trying to head to. You see the logo behind her on that floor as she's walking in, etc. The freedom fighters with the sheriff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They connect a circuit and a big light shines up from up above. And what is the first thing Russell, the head of IT, says? Think Holland when people see the screens. He says, shut your eyes,
shut your eyes.
Look away.
Yeah.
But it's just mimicking sunlight. Now, let's play with that a little bit, because just before Tim, the sheriff's son, comes in, he's holding a torch. One of the sheriff's guys goes, no light past here.
Yep. Engineering sent a message for my dad.
5 bells. Okay, what's the 5 bells? Who cares?
Yeah, what the F is with the bells? At an agreed upon number of bells they attack. What number would that be? Apparently it's 3, which wasn't true because it was 5.
Because it kept going.
Because it was 5, which is what cracked me up about it. Because I was like, no, he just said it was 5.
Here's the wacky thing is that I don't think we're going to get that answer, or that it doesn't really matter.
So I assumed that the darkness aspect of this was like, well, the generator was going to be done. They weren't going to have any light, but also that they were like trying to use darkness as kind of like a manipulation tactic.
Camouflage. Okay.
Either IT shut the light down to squash the rebellion in hopes that it would squash it, or the rebellion cut the lights thinking that they were going to be able to use it for cover. And then that's why he yells, don't look at the light, because they've been so adjusted to being in the darkness that the light would blind them and they wouldn't be able to see who was coming.
And yet it sounds exactly like Holland. Shut your eyes, look away. It's just weird, huh? As if they're not supposed to look at the light, as if the light is something that's not meant for them. It begs another question. If mechanical is flooded now, where is all the electricity coming from? Because like, you do see the wires hanging around and they're making circuits. I wondered that
too, because like there is some function still in the silo because the music is playing, the fan is still running, the water is still dripping.
So there's some sort of hydraulic power.
So there's some sort of power, but I don't know if it was like an emergency grid.
There is an emergency generator. That's true.
That
it's not meant. Yeah, it's not meant to power the whole silo. And maybe that's where they rerouted the power. We don't know where that is, technically speaking. So
that's why they had to move when they did, because they only had 15 minutes or whatever. And that light thing probably was not going to work beyond that.
Yeah. It's just the shut your eyes, look away thing. That was interesting. I don't know if we'll get an answer to that. And well, maybe our Steve Zahn character might shed some light on this idea too. Because my first thought when he even said those words, if you're trying to get in, I'm going to kill you. If you try that again, I get it. I love that he says, I get it. You're curious. That's fine.
Hold on. Let me see. Hey, good. You heard the music.
I wrote it all down too.
He did intentionally. I love that song. So one thing, you tried to open the door. I get it. You see a closed door. What's on the other side? I understand. Thing is, you do that again and I'm gonna
Moon River. And this is what struck me is that up until now, I don't think there was any composed music in the silo. There were obviously horns of some kind.
You're right, because that would be considered a relic.
Yeah, I guess. It's not to say that there's no music. There's definitely plays. We know that there are plays because they do the Founders play on Founders Day.
Yeah, but those are all things that have been written since they've been in the silo. That's the thing. Moon River is a song from what, the 1940s?
Correct. I'm just saying music in general. I'm struggling to think of whether there was anything beyond horns that were playing on Forgiveness Day, Founders Day, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Which makes me a little sad if you think about it. These things are clearly the kinds of things that would help you through survival.
It's the Audrey Hepburn version of Moon River, too.
Correct. Well, that's the first one. You should know. This was originally composed by Henry Mancini and lyrics by Johnny Mercer, 1961 or 4. Can't remember which one.
I always assumed that it was a cover that she was singing.
Well, as sung by Audrey Hepburn on Breakfast at Tiffany's, right?
Yeah.
Breakfast at Tiffany's. So, okay, there is a significance to that if you want to move on to that.
Go ahead.
Moon River. Now, I looked it up on genius.com to see what people say about it, what the meaning is behind the words. Here's what I walked away with. Juliet, just like the main character in Breakfast at Tiffany, may have to pretend to give Steve Zahn's character what he wants. Because the main character in Breakfast at Tiffany's is kind of like this pretend socialite. She lures men in to get what she wants and doesn't ultimately give what they want, which is sexy time. But that doesn't happen. Juliet may have to do that with Steve Zahn here. Let's move on. Now, another thing that is a thing in this song is that when she's with that person that she wants to be with at Moon River, which is the ideal, Moon River is kind of like, this happens around the moon landing. And so when the moon is here on Earth, it makes me feel special. It makes me feel like I'm walking on the moon, like I did something great. Little old me. So when you're there with that person, you feel like you're doing something great with that person. The lyrics kind of allude that these two people come from different places as well. And yet they both want the same thing. This is alluded by the lyric, we're after the same rainbow's end, waiting around the bend, my huckleberry friend. Which is actually a specific lyric that refers to something about Johnny Mercer, and huckleberry picking is a hillbilly thing technically. And so Steve had a friend who he picked huckleberries with. He was a city kid or something like that. So it's like, it alludes to the fact that these two characters on Moon River, they come from two different places who want the same thing, who feel like they're in the presence of greatness or ascending to greatness. And so in another world, in other words, Juliet and the Steve Zahn character could have been best friends. Even though they may be coming different places, they have the same thought process, let's say. Sometimes a song is more than just a song. So I pair that with the story about Martha Walker. Isn't that what we all want? We all want connection, because that's the worst thing. Because this is the point of her story about when she had pneumonia, is that her worst nightmare was waking up and nobody was there. That would be the worst thing. The generator can explode or whatever, but if nobody was there to be with her at the end, that would have been the worst. And that dude around the corner saying, shut the F up, it's 3 a.m. It's a comforting thing that there's somebody to yell at you. And isn't that the worst thing? More than just finding out that this whole thing was built on a lie?
What, to be alone?
Is the worst thing is to be alone, right? To make everything fail and for the population to have to thin to a extreme small amount. That's death. To be alone, like this guy that's behind a door. Possibly. We don't know if there's anybody else behind there, but yeah, that's death. That's what happened to his silo, is they found out the truth and it ruined everything. So could this be a contingency plan? Like in case somebody else from another silo comes in and they could tell them the story, and maybe there's a group of dissidents out there somewhere that also has either escaped their silo or were the remnants of a failed one. Could be interesting to see. I don't know how far they're going to take this.
I don't know.
If Apple's going to give them the runaway to do that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And then again, I don't know how much this diverges from the source material. So
it's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The only question I had really was, if it is him that cut the rope, it's just interesting to kind of go back and forth on, because he would have had to have been the one to cut the rope. He would have had to have been the one to close the inner door of the blast door or the airlock. But then how did he kill the people outside the door? Did he just wait them out because he could? Did he influence the environment? Does he have a connection to the feeds?
My thought was, is this going to be some crazy character that's been isolated for
40 years or something?
30, 40 years. Yeah, I don't know. That was my original thought, was that has he been isolated? Did he close himself in? I mean, I also think that potentially there are tunnels to other silos, but I don't know. I can't treat it as that. Yeah, I'm not really
You can't go on your biases. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually first thought that the guy behind the door was Tim, the sheriff's son. But then
he went out with them.
You actually see his corpse. His mom is holding his corpse outside because his dad was holding the flag ahead of him.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen that it was Tim, a character from the past to the present, and that it wasn't terribly long ago either.
Yeah.
But for all we know, it would have to be in someone's lifetime. How long ago that could have been could be.
I know. My
years?
initial thought was, did Russell have a wife and was she pregnant, and did they put her back there and then she had this baby and then he lived with her until she died and now he's living with her corpse back there? I don't know.
Or, this is interesting.
I don't know.
It could also be like a Superman thing. They have a something in suspended animation. And if this place fails, there's a contingency plan. It's a cruel contingency plan, because if this place fails, a Bernard on their side, the Russell on their side turns a key, and all of a sudden that baby becomes a thing. It does make you think. Or like if cryo sleep is a thing, they could wake this person up from the before times, maybe even before this all went down. They needed one person to stay behind to kind of be the explainer of what happened and why we did this. Anything's possible. And which also be an explanation of how long you think 200 years could have been a whole lot longer. And he could have been in cryosleep every now and again. So he could have been here for way longer than that. Because that was one of my first thoughts, is like, we say 200 years since the rebellion or whatever, since before the rebellion or whatever, but it could have been way longer. And
we don't know, because all
cycles.
Information was destroyed from before that. So you just really don't know.
Don't know. Exactly. You make assumptions based on the numbers they throw out there, but I'm willing to go beyond that. Why not?
Yeah.
Moon wears pants, or would be the gopher wears spats. If we're going underground, I don't know. Well, the moon's up in the sky. You know, that's where Fatima used to tell us where to look on from.
That
but
is
now the
not
gopher,
where that saying came from.
The gopher wears spats.
It had nothing to do with looking into the sky. It's because of this girl that I used to work with that used to lie about everything. And so I always used to say, like, and then I flew to the moon. So when I was frantically trying to explain that you were over theorizing, I went to the moon for whatever reason. And I decided to say that it wore pants, and then it's stuck.
Also, the Earth is flat. You should know that.
I hate
Well, you should know that. I hate me too.
I
That's
hate
fine.
you. How does Hollow Earth then exist, Dave? Idiot.
I think we have to kind of roll over the fact that we assume at first that these silos must be the same. I did kind of put a finger on it at the beginning of this episode that what if this was all planned? What if each silo had their own plan or had their own series of events that had to have occurred in order to create the same results because of the flooding of the mechanical? And it's easy to assume that every silo would be the same. But the fact that we got to see how much the same they are was interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to take it for granted. But there are small differences like the design work, this other silo, the triangles patterns you see everywhere on the walls and on the equipment and stuff like that. I thought that was interesting for starters.
I mean, if there's so many of them, it's fair that you would just take the same model and create it over and over and over again. And then whoever was designing each one had their freedom to be able to design it the way that they wanted it to look.
To maybe inspire them differently. Or
Yeah.
to kind of
No, that I
see the
get.
same thing.
I was glad that Juliet broke the mirror
To see if that's been happening here
apartment
too.
because I was curious if that was the same thing. And it did lead me to say, like, oh, I wish that she knew how to get to
Janitorial?
She
Because
doesn't.
then she could review the theater. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a story that's not over yet.
She doesn't know how to get there, but it would be interesting if she knew that that piece of the pipe slid and that there was that little room there because she could then go review the feed to see what had happened.
Oh, you're right. Didn't she get to see the footage or get to see that room? I believe she did because she got to see what George's fate was. Yes. So she does know that a room exists somewhere in this place too, with which she can use.
Oh, yeah. They had her turn around, didn't they?
They had everybody else turn around.
No, before
Oh.
they went into the room, remember? Because they have to open it.
Good call. Look at your memory. Yeah. But she knows it exists and she knows it's somewhere. She knows
Yeah,
it's
she would know.
janitorial.
She would know where it is, and she could work on trying to figure out.
Yeah, she
how
has
it's
enough
hidden.
information.
I get.
Yeah.
I guess you're right.
The question is it underwater or not? How far up does the water go? Because it reaches several stories below IT, enough for her not to die from the impact
Yeah,
of the water.
Correct.
Of which we have to remember, and it's good to remind the people, nobody knows how to swim. Nobody. There's something else that we need to actually
And she
bring
is
up.
especially afraid of the water. Also,
True.
that is reviewed in season 1.
Anybody would be.
She
really,
braved it for George's sake. George was not worried about the water because for whatever reason, he says, turns out it wasn't an issue.
Oh, that was your big
Which
thing.
we don't know what that means still to this day.
George took that to the grave-ish.
Yeah.
We should bring that up because I was under the impression that George showed her the chasm, the digger chasm.
Oh, yeah, no, it was
Did you get that
Shirley.
impression?
I did too. I thought that, well, I knew someone had to have shown him.
Right.
Did she take him?
So that's what you're supposed to take away from that, is that you assume that it was George that
Oh,
showed
yeah,
her
because the
this.
only time we see it is when he takes the sheriff.
You see he and she go there, but it's weird. I feel like I need to review season 1 again to see how that plays
we
out.
just watched it not that long ago. Wait, he's told about it from someone. I recall him saying that.
Oh,
It
he
wasn't Juliet. He takes her down there and she pretends like she's never been.
Because he's mansplaining. You don't want to let a man stop a man from mansplaining, right? Could we have been wrong about that? That's a big thing that we need to talk about. Could it have been something that she took him to thank him for showing her the footage? The
But
Jane
I
Carmody cleaning?
swore, does he take Rashida Jones down there?
You mean Allison?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
He takes someone down there and shows them because I remember thinking
we get that impression. He showed both of them because he's a womanizer, that man.
no. In the second episode of season 1, Juliet takes the sheriff, Holston Becker, to the lowest level of mechanical. And through a secret passage, she shows him a massive chamber beneath the silo where the digger vehicle that created the silo was built and was left. So it's not George that takes her. She takes Holston.
And so we're to assume that she also
I was
takes
trying to
George.
remember, because I remember someone taking someone else down there and explaining that they had been told about it. And I couldn't remember who it was, but it must have been Juliet taking Holston down there.
Which is really interesting because you're left with the assumption that it was George that showed her Aladdin and Jasmine. I can show you the world. George is showing Juliet the world, basically.
Mm-hmm. I actually just found, as I was looking that up, I found an article on IGN entitled Silo Season 2, Our Biggest Burning Questions Before the New Season. And there are some really great questions in here.
Let's go through them.
So this was written by Carlos Morales, and it was updated yesterday at 2:35 p.m. It was posted a couple minutes before that, so he just went in and edited something, I guess. How long has the
Too early
silo
to tell.
operated? We've learned
That's
that it's been
what we asked.
140 years since the rebellion.
200 years total.
Why are elevators and magnifiers outlawed?
Right.
Good question. Forgot about the elevator, honestly.
Factoid. Martha Walker is working on a magnifier when Juliet comes in. Is it the same magnifier her mother used earlier to heal the rabbit
Oh, maybe.
that was thrown down, obviously, in the chute?
Yeah. Why did the window display show a fake green world if it's supposed to be for the helmet display? Just fair. What is the syndrome? And is it related to being born underground? Because Paul Billings had the syndrome. And we didn't really talk a ton about it.
Yeah, we did a little bit.
We don't really know much about it. There's not much to know.
There are signs about the syndrome, by the way, which I think we touched on.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, okay, good.
Will we learn more about the Flame Keepers? Are there similar organizations in other silos?
Undoubtedly.
What happened?
They're too similar.
What happened to George's secret door that he found beneath the silo?
In the tunnels, in
Because
the digger chasm,
that's where I found this little synopsis of what had happened. Okay, so she takes Becker down there. Given Holston's reaction, it seems that silo leadership has no idea that this chamber exists. At least the leadership that he is a part of.
Okay.
But more pressingly, George Wilkins, Juliet's lover, who commits suicide to escape judicial questioning, has discovered a secret underwater door at the bottom of this chamber that led to another passage.
But it's not a problem.
But he didn't get to see where it went before his death. I mean, he says it was not a problem, so we don't really know. Could this passage lead to another silo? Has there been a way to travel between silos this whole time that nobody knew about? And given how many times the secret door is talked about, Juliet even attempts to get to it at one point, but fails because of her fear of the water. We would be shocked if it's not an important element of season 2.
Well, it would be her way of getting into her old silo.
Yes. Which there's been a lot of reflection on her relationship with Shirley and Walker, and her dad is still there. Yeah. And we're like, I'm dying because now she has more information about what's outside. They just saw her walk off. So like, they don't know. She's got to be able to get back to say like, no, it's horrible out there. Like, please don't go outside.
Now is a great time. You'd think it would be in the beginning of our discussion, but now is a perfect time to talk about this. One thing that we rarely talk about, and that is the season recap or even the prior episode recap.
Yeah. The one that played at the beginning of the episode.
Super important. Let me talk about recaps in general, though. We don't talk about this that often, but I remember somebody talking about this. I don't know if it was Nerd Rider 1 on YouTube or if it was Patrick H. Williams. Well, one of them talked about how the recap is a part of the story. Whether it should be or shouldn't be is debatable.
That is correct.
More and more with every single series that comes out, I'm not sure about From necessarily or anything like that, but they design the recap of the prior episode, and in this case, the prior season, in such a way that it plays into either this episode or what they want you to have in your mind moving forward.
It highlights the points that you need to know for your current watch.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, let me go through this because it becomes a storytelling device. Should it be and should it not be is a whole debatable point, because shouldn't your series do a show don't tell? And you know what? To this episode's credit, something I said right off the top is that it does a show don't tell by way of this other silo's tragic history. How it could have gone for the other silo, catches you up with the similar archetypes. They're literally spelling out IT is an archetype, the sheriff's department's an archetype, the mechanical's an archetype, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're clearly reflected in the very things that they say. Don't look. Shut your eyes. Don't look.
Yeah.
Turn away. Look away. Says the same exact thing. Anyway, let me go through it because it's important. Mayor John says, I'm going to summarize. Regain our freedom. Open the door. We wouldn't be here. Gloria Hildebrand. What was on the servers and the books they erased? Holston and Allison Becker. Do not ask to go outside. The pact in a nutshell. They both die trying to get at the truth. The display in the helmet is a lie. The Beckers cleaning and dying changed feelings because it immediately shows images of people. The sheriff in the Down Deep that we like, he has the long hair.
Oh,
he eats all the hush puppies
yeah.
on the way up. He's an English actor. He's the son of Pete Postlethwaite, whom you best know from The Usual Suspects. He's whom they refer to as Kobayashi, or like the Kobayashi assistant. His son is Shakespearean actor, and he's on the
Billy
show.
Postlethwaite. Hank is his character.
Hank is his, Deputy Hank or whatever. Yeah. Or Sheriff Hank. I don't remember. Anyway, I bring that up because he's breaking up all these fights after Holstenbecker dies, because everybody's kind of like, this is just too much.
Oh, Pete Postlethwaite. Oh my gosh, is he a heavy hitter of an actor?
That's his son.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
And his son's a heavy hitter too. He
Would
does
not
Shakespeare.
have put that together, but they do have some facial similarity.
Well, now that you look,
it's like the nose.
But Pete Postlethwaite also has that.
He's
we
so distinctive looking. He's so distinctive.
Pock marks and stuff. Yeah, whatever.
I don't know how to describe this other than I grew up with a British dad. It's something about him is very British looking. I don't know. I cannot describe it. There's something about the way his face looks that is extremely British.
Okay, moving along. That ruined people. Something about that really rubbed people the wrong way. They liked Holstenbecker. Then it moves on to Sam Marnes going, Holston entrusted the truth to Juliet Nichols from engineering for some reason. And then we get to see that in this other silos. Okay, sheriff and the engineering department, they had a connection. They had a runner, the sheriff's son, come up and bring the message. But it's also mentioned, Walker says, you fix S so you don't have to deal with S. Now that's not true, is it? It's partially true. She fixes S because it's the only thing she can do. She can't.
It's like the only thing she has control over.
Yeah, she can't fix her broken family and her broken relationship, but she can fix maybe something that meant something to another family. That's her way of kind of feeling like she's doing something in the world. And it's never more reflected in the dog she fixes in this episode. She decides to fix something that is a lost cause, effectively. But then she uses that very meaningful thing to create a new relationship, which I contend is going to be the relationship she builds with Steve Zahn's character. Possibly. Because what is all this for if not to make connection? What are we doing here in this world if we're not here to make connection? Why do we keep on throwing barriers from making that connection? Because we're afraid to get hurt in this world? Anyway, George Wilkins says the silos have doors between them. There's also flooding at the bottom. Juliet can't swim. Neither can anybody else in these places, but Juliet is afraid of it because she got to see the vastness of how much water there could be.
I mean, it's terrifying, honestly.
I labeled this point shaky trust. Deputy, now Sheriff Paul Billings. IT's Bernard Holland, now Mayor. Judicial's Robert Sims, now who knows with his one ambition. Who knows what he is? Yeah. Because they kept going back and forth. Holland was like, I don't think you're cut out for it. And at the end of it, he goes, yeah, maybe you are cut out for it. And then he runs to the server room, completely forgetting about that conversation. Okay, surveillance state. Now, it could be dispose of issues that could compromise the balance. One of the raiders in that flashback sees Juliet say, I never asked to clean. And she has that face on her, that mixed face of, I should be disgusted with you. But then again, what if she really didn't ask to clean? It's distinctive. It's
to create that question. You're putting this person out who's saying that they didn't say it.
Shaky trust.
Yes.
That's why I call that section shaky trust.
Yeah.
Because who are you to believe? There's ambitions at play here. What's the purpose of it? Next section is putting the good of the silo above your own family is what's said. Sims is going after Pete, asking him where Juliet is because she is vanished from the sensors and all that stuff. And he goes, wouldn't you want to protect your daughter? And he goes, I wouldn't put my kid above the needs of 10,000 people and 10,000 more to come. But in the very next flash, Knox gives her up, proving the point. I have other people to protect here.
Correct.
Which he's not wrong. Shirley Campbell, her best friend, hates this. And she's supposed to. You're not supposed to like it.
Yeah, correct.
And yet she acknowledges, as much as she wants to, it could wreck this whole thing. It could wreck everything. She ultimately defers to Knox. Okay. Juliet asks the question, can people handle the truth? Holland smashes the hard drive, says, I admire your optimism, but no, they can't.
Yeah.
And there's so much proof of that. Okay.
Plus, it's not even the truth. It's a lie.
It's a truth wrapped in a lie, wrapped in a truth.
It kills me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the truth wrapped in a lie, wrapped in the truth. But we got to see that. We got to see that immediately after this flashback. Okay. Now the consequences of cleaning is that you're outside of the law. They reminded us of that. You're now outside the law. What law? The pact. What's the one rule of the pact? You go outside, you ask to clean. But then again, you're outside of all the rules that we impose upon you in order to keep this place safe. What does that mean? If she comes back, what happens?
Oh,
is she like Steve Zahn? Is he on the outside?
It's like Jon Snow's vow to his lifelong vow to serve at the
Oh, the
wall,
wall
but then he died, so that it was no longer applicable. It's
is
like
outside the
same-
laws of nature, buddy.
I left, so now and you told me these laws no longer apply once I'm outside of the silo, so now none of the laws apply to me anymore.
Yeah, so I can just walk in and tell people the truth. Hey,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. There's a camera behind that mirror. We should not dress in front of it. That's gross. Okay, she's the first person to not clean, which I say this because it was already really upsetting to see both Beckers, Allison and Holston, within 3 years.
Yeah.
It caused some chaos. What do you think is happening in the original silo? I'm not asking you to ask you. I'm just saying, what do you
But I
can you even imagine?
loved that in the recap they showed her father's face when she dropped the wool.
Pride.
He was so proud of her in that moment for like sticking to her guns and following through. And it made me really emotional when I was watching the recap. I was like, oh, yeah, he was so proud of her in that moment.
And that his wife wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
And that he really ultimately, because you could still have your doubts, but that he really ultimately wasn't responsible for any of that.
Yes.
He did the best he could, and he realized that. I really like that. I really love that for him. Okay, Bernard heads straight to the server room with the 18 key that's flashing, whatever. He just sticks it down, and then goes in there. We don't know what happens, but we kind of do now. Ish. We don't know what it means, but we know what he was going for. We assume now this keeps him safe from the chaos that might occur. Maybe he is the one that goes behind the blast door to be immune from the chaos that will definitely erupt from this moment. Because so we might be able to assume that he goes behind that door. Even anything's possible. That Russell may be just another IT lackey, or the Russell in this silo could be the Sims, maybe from our silo. We'll call it our silo, Silo Prime, in our view. That's just in the recap. This again.
Yeah.
This is a means of storytelling. It is to prime you, even though they still do the show don't tell.
Yeah.
It's to kind of keep you in a headspace.
I want to go back to the part where you talked about Sims saying, I wouldn't sacrifice everybody for my family. Lie. Because we also get in that recap his family all huddled together talking about how they're going to do anything.
Just after what happened.
Yeah, to ensure their success.
No, but what happened just prior to that?
Juliet had been in their apartment holding the wife at gunpoint.
And clearly traumatized their child.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He sent in raiders to intervene.
Yeah.
A special little allowance for him.
Yep.
To protect his family from Juliet.
That's why Holland's like, maybe this isn't for you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You clearly put yourself above the silo. For an episode where you think there's not much to talk about, there seems to be a lot to talk about.
Well, there's things to talk about because it answered some questions but leaves new questions. And then also gives you questions you didn't know that you had.
Always great. And it does it in a way that isn't from.
Correct.
Again, digestible, not absurd, referential.
Well, it exists within like a reasonable reality that could exist in our own reality, which is why it doesn't break any of the laws of physics.
Right. The gopher may still wear spats, but it's within reason.
I hate this.
You can hate me all you want, but you did this. You started it. I just finished it.
You made it worse.
Well, folks, I think that's it for now. And I'm liking this. I like that we had enough to talk about. And listen, I wouldn't have minded if these episodes would have been a little shorter, but I'm glad there was enough here and significant enough to really talk about. I would have been fine with an hour, but this is good.
Yeah, me too. Well, here we are.
But here we are. And here you are. And if you like what you've heard, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars and a jumpsuit emoji is all we need to know that you love us. But tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what we definitely missed. And if it was important enough, well, then we want to know, and we will mention what you said in your review in the next episode. Leave a comment on the YouTube video so that we can add some more to the next episode that will undoubtedly, hopefully show up. Remember to like that video too. And if you watched us on Spotify, there is a comment section there too. So tell us what's what. But if you really like what you've heard and you want to be a part of these episodes, head on over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead. Just follow us so that you get our recording schedules. You will receive a notification when we update that schedule. It is free to attend. It's free to follow. It's free to attend the chat. Make sure to head on over there whenever you can so that your insights can be a part of this episode. You don't know what I'm talking like this, but here we are. This is what I've been reduced to. And if you really like what you've heard, I think it would be great. It would be wonderful. You would like that for us if you just tip us on Ko-fi and receive our unedited episode recordings for 30 days, as well as my pre-squawk insights. Take it a little further and join a membership tier for as little as $4 a month on either Ko-fi or Patreon. Each comes with their own wonderful perks. Usually there is a baseline set of perks between Ko-fi and Patreon. The prices are different because there's different markups. I'm sorry, okay? But I make it worth your while by way of exclusive merchandise on Patreon and lower prices on Ko-fi, but also additional perks like a free classic t-shirt when you join the Whispers, Great M, and Survivors tier. If you happen to join those last two, the Great M and Survivors tier, you can show up on these episodes alongside us, giving us your thoughts to the world in real time. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by
Bridget. You can find me at Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
And with that, everybody, I hope you join us for the next episode, which will hopefully open some more doors. Some of them maybe even blast. Well, if you're here at the end of the episode, I sincerely thank you, because Silo is a new series that we're covering. And if you made it this far, well, you're enjoying it as much as we are. And you've also reached the part of the podcast where we thank our survivors, whispers, and Great M tier members, which is a little perk that they receive for supporting us monthly on either Ko-fi or Patreon. Starting with the Great M tier, we have at Real Ryan GM on Instagram and X. In the survivors tier, we have Douglas Atherton at Walking Dead Artist, the number 2 on Instagram. Moving on to our Whispers tier members, we have on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Aiden Atkin, ko-fi.com/Connie Dixon, the number 4 LYFE, and ko-fi.com/fanartlindy. On Instagram, we have at Eliza Jones 71. On Facebook, we have at kim.rowley, the number 1. I honestly cannot wait to cover the next episode of Silo. It's coming at us real fast, and we'll be heading back to the original Silo Prime as I referred to it, to see what's happened after Juliet left. I hope. You never know with this series. It kind of does go back and forth between time to maybe retread some ground, give us some more context. It's kind of the thing I love, and it's not convoluted with tons and tons of unexplained plot points. Everything is useful. So let's enjoy the ride and remember that we are Squawking Dead.